everyone, it's Penny Black and Jill Foster with a video number 2 in our Permission to Play video series featuring simple sketches. And today's sketch is all about finding a way to feature those smaller stamps or dies that you have in your collection that you want to be the main element on the card, but if you just put them on there by themselves, sometimes it feels like the card is just a little bit unfinished. So today's sketch is going to tackle that in a very simple and easy way. So just a reminder before we begin what this Permission to Play series is all about, and feel free to repeat after me if you need to, because I needed to hear this myself, that it's okay to make simple cards. It's okay to do the same sketch and layout over and over. If you love it, just keep going with it. It's okay to mix old and new products, to be creative and not productive, and to do not compare your cards to other people's cards. Your recipients don't do that, and it can kind of steal the joy away sometimes when you're creating. But here are 3 hacks for simple cards that you'll be proud of, using embossing folders, using quality images, and strong colors. So let's get started with today's sketch. This sketch, again, this is a simple oval sketch, but it gives you a way to use those smaller stamps or dies that you want to feature. So if you watched my prep video, you will have already seen this is what I had prepared in my envelope system. I'll link that video down below because if you've missed it, you might find that helpful. But this sketch is basically just an embossed background with just about an inch trimmed off the top and a piece of paper to cover that seam where that meets the panel. These are all standard size A2 cards, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inches. Then I've used Penny Black's all-in-one oval. This is just the interior piece to become the spotlight to place those smaller stamps or dies that you want to feature. And then I've cut just from my scratch paper pieces that can be the background for those ovals, which will make more sense when we go ahead and create the cards. So today I am featuring the Hedgie stamps from our new Hedgie Adventure stamp set. This is a really great sketch for this, but again, using strong images, which is what I find with Penny Black. They are quality images that never go out of style. They aren't overly trendy or overly graphic. They're made by illustrators, talented illustrators, and I find you can go to ones that are really old or new and always be happy with your cards. So I've stamped this Hedgie Adventures. I picked 3 of them, and I went ahead and stamped them on Canson 140-pound cold pressed watercolor paper using Ranger Archival ink in the color of watering can. Then I've also die cut our Refresh and Ascending dies out of that watercolor paper. Just a reminder, there is an ebook available that has all of the sketches from this series and the card ideas. I'll link that for you down in the YouTube description box below. So I'm going to go ahead and paint these in with my Distress Ink Reinkers used as watercolors. I've got those handy along with a paper towel and a cup of water. And I'm following my typical process but keeping it very simple, picking up the saturated ink right out of the palette, putting it where I want the color to be darkest, and then if I want to go back and go from dark to light, I will go ahead and rinse off my brush, pat it on my paper towel, and blend that out. So you can see here I'm just putting a touch of this blue faded jeans, then I'm going back with that brush that's been rinsed off and patted dry to blend that out. This is just a touch of shadowing because I want to keep this as a white daisy. I'm putting just a little touch there of broken china to lighten it up a little bit. And then when you saw me kind of move my brush slowly over that, I was lifting some of that color. So my brush was fairly dry, what you would call a thirsty brush, and I could just lift up some of that color. So if you go too dark, if it's still wet, you can kind of lift it up if you rinse off and pat dry. Now I will list all of the supplies I'm using down in the description box below. So if you want to know the exact colors that I'm using, ink, paintbrush, all of that, it's listed down below. And all of the Penny Black products are listed and linked down below. Now to paint in this body of the hedgie, I'm just pressing this Toffee Crunch Memento ink pad on an acrylic block. I love this color of tan because for me it doesn't go too yellow. So I reach for it often when I just want a light tan. So I'm painting him in. You can see the illustrations on these are so quality. You don't have to do a lot of fancy shading to really bring them to life. In fact, sometimes the simpler you're painting, I think the more charming the image looks. So just super fun to create these cards. And I love that with this sketch, I have a place to put this guy and I will feel like the card is complete. So if you want a more elegant look to your cards, if you're not into cutesy, you can still use this sketch. Or if you have a larger element that you want to feature. So this refresh die, I love these flowers, these penny black die cut flowers. I am just watercoloring these. So you could cut them from colored cardstock, but if you're new to painting or you just want to be able to experiment, some permission to play, this is a great way to give yourself that permission with your paints because it's very, very forgiving. You don't have to stay in the lines. You don't have to blend too perfectly. If you don't like your painting, pull out your ink pads and your foam blending tool and just blend over the top of it once it's dry. So it's very, very forgiving, a great way to give yourself permission to play with those die cuts and your paints. You can see I just put that spiced marmalade and a little bit of barn door and let it blend out just barely into those petals, but the rest I'm going to keep white. This is the Penny Black Ascending die. Again, really, really beautiful. This is from our previous release, but I have been using these floral dies so much. You'll see them throughout these entire 10 video series because I just love them. They're really, really versatile. I'm painting this with some peeled paint. Again, the Distress Ink Reinker used as a watercolor, but you can, again, give yourself permission to use whatever medium you like. So if you see me using paints, but paints are frustrating to you, cut it from colored cardstock or cut it from smooth cardstock and use an ink blending tool on it. Color it with your Copic markers, whatever brings you joy. It's okay to keep returning to that over and over again. Now here I am adding some Forest Moss Distress Ink Reinker, sort of right down that stem, and then where it meets out or goes out into the leaf, I'm just patting that with my brush. Now if you want more detailed watercolor instruction, I'll link a video for you down below where I go much slower and give a lot more details on my watercolor process. So I've painted everything. Now I'm ready to just start putting these cards together. I have these elements in my sketch envelope all ready to go. So I'm just inking on top of this with a distress ink using an ink blending tool and a foam pad, starting off of the edge and working my way on. That's with a Peacock Feathers distress ink. And what that does is it just kind of highlights those raised areas. Now because I did have these colored cardstock pieces picked out before I did my painting, I could sort of match up the colors that I was painting with the images and to go with that colored cardstock. So I'm just putting this on my card panel. And what I do, once I finish all my panels, then they can go on a card base. But I just like working on all this separately from the card base. That way I don't get any smudges or ink or anything on the actual card bases themselves. This little piece, this little strip of scratch paper makes for a really nice seam. It just kind of finishes off that edge. And I'll just trim off the excess. It's easier to cut it extra long and trim than to match it up perfectly. I never cut things the right length. That's why I'm not a carpenter. I would never be able to build anything properly. So anyways, here is a piece of scratch paper I'm going to use for the background of that oval. And I'm just inking this with some distress ink using an ink blending tool and a foam pad. I'm also going to use a little Memento Toffee Crunch. It's like creating a little scene for your critter within that oval. And you can see where that is the back. Just checking my colors here that I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck that critter coming out of the oval. So you'll see you can tuck them inside your oval, you can put them over the top of your oval. however you like to do it and whatever fits best for your image. I love this with his little flower umbrella kind of peeking over the edge of the oval, but his body going behind it. Trim off any extra. And then I'm going to use some foam tape, and I'll just trim that down. And you can see that I've worked assembly line on this. I did all my stamping, I did all my painting, and then now I'm doing the assembly of the cards all at the same time. And I'll just peel off these backing sheets. And then I'll be ready to add that to that background piece. Now I did stamp my sentiment on there so that was easier to do when it was just one single piece than when all these pieces were layered on there. And then I'm just going to trim around and cut off the excess. Isn't that cute? Now that little piece is ready to go on the card, and you can see how with that embossing to add the detail to the simple card with a quality image and with strong colors, a very simple card looks very complete, a card that you can be proud of, but that is just fun and feels like playing to create. So here is a look at all of the cards that I made using this sketch. So there's the one we just did. Here you can see I have the hedgie outside of the circle, really fun since he's kind of floating by with his balloon. Another one where I fit that on the outside, certainly could have been tucked in as well. I put the color on top this time and did the embossing in white. Here I turned the sketch and was able to put in those larger pieces in the oval and give that an elegant makeover. I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I'd love to know which card is your favorite. Leave me a comment down below. I read them all. They mean so much to me. Thank you to all of you for your support and kindness. And so just appreciate you being here with us and getting excited and enjoying our hobby together. Be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification so you see our next video, number 3, coming up in this series. And give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. You can also connect with Penny Black on Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram, as well as our website and blog. And all of those will be linked for you down in the YouTube description box below. Happy stamping!